Thank you for tuning in to episode 4 of the Behind the Mask, presented by Real News No Bullshit. Episode 4 features a tech engineer that works in a Fortune 25 company. In our conversations, he talks about the dangers of technology and social media. Our guest has requested his voice be altered to ensure that his identity stays anonymous. This is his story. Talk to me about what you do.
As a software engineer, I have a specialization in infrastructure, and my main job is to ensure that when certain things are on fire or broken, that the app is still usable. I'm sure everyone's experienced this going to Netflix, Google, YouTube, and one day you go to youtube.com, it doesn't load, and you're like, oh, it must be my Wi Fi. You check a different website, it works, and you go back to youtube.com, and it's still not working. So my job is avoiding that situation where you just can't get to the web page or the app you're trying to use, even though it's experiencing difficulties and allow you to use like basic functionality. So like one thing, like a typical strategy is to disable like uploading videos if it was YouTube, for example, so people could still watch videos because that's the more important thing. Like YouTube doesn't need any new videos for people to enjoy. Of course, it's a nice to have, but for like baseline enjoyment, they have a catalog already to watch.
So your job is making sure the app or whatever you work for, right? Which you've asked us not to disclose who you work for,
Yeah.
but you are comfortable with us saying that the company you work for is a Fortune 25 company, and that company, I have the app on my phone, and I'm sure most people in America have it too. It's a very popular app, and I would almost argue that some people without it can't, you know, it would be very hard to function in life. Some aspects of life. Um, so first of all, first question I want to ask you off the bat: why do you have to talk to me with a mask on?
So a lot of that is due to job safety and future job prospects. A average lifespan of a role in tech is somewhere between 1 to 2 years, like depending on the company. For Google example, 2 years is about the average for someone in tech. My company tends to be closer to the 1 year side, which means there's a lot of mixture of people and companies. Like when you go and look at the traditional job, speaking of not tech, people often have 10, 15-year careers. 5 year careers tend to be on like the shorter side. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but that's kind of my understanding. Because tech is so short and limited lifespan of like a job, people move all over. And like if even like 5 or 10 people were to find out about my situation, I don't know where those 5 and 10 people end up or how much above me they'll end up. And this could definitely bar me from opportunities.
So
I have had like the people I interned with, for example, and even worked full time with. I know like people at like 20, 30 different companies at this point, and I'm not that far into my career.
which is crazy when you think about it, that someone's going through 20 or 30 careers. Even the fact that you're saying it's normal to just stay where you work for a year.
Yeah, I actually, it's not on my resume anymore, but I worked somewhere for 6 months, and that wasn't even looked at as a concern. Like I looked at, I hated it, I quit, and then I got my current
Now, does
job.
that like as a person, I'm an employer, right? If I'm interviewing somebody for a job and I see that they worked at a company, for only a year or 6 months, there's a there's a pattern there. As an employer, for me, I would be like, well, that's something concerning that you're constantly moving. In that kind of career space, is that just like, oh, yep, same shit, different day? Like that's the norm?
It's almost looked as a benefit because as an engineer, you're supposed to be being like exposed to a lot of different systems
Okay.
and like types of engineering. So when you are moving around, you're getting more exposure. So if I was to sit on my team for say 5 years, I would know a lot about my specific domain, which would make me valuable, right? But it means I am way too domain specific.
Hmm.
And now, if I jump around a lot, I'm working on a lot of different things that you just kind of become a more well rounded engineer. So it's not looked at as a bad thing necessarily. Another thing about software specifically is in that 6 months, I built something. That something is still running now. So my value I create is not based on my time at a company. My value is still paying off.
Got it. So,
For example,
so let me ask you this: you the company that you work for right now, you've been with them. Are you comfortable saying how long?
About two
About 2
years.
years. And is that considered, like an average employee in your field then, or is that like this guy's kind of like almost like a veteran here? Like it, like
So, there is a statistic. Let me remember it. I think I'm at my current company for longer than somewhere between 60 and 80% of employees.
that's crazy. So
So it is a veteran. I think
the turnover rate is just insane.
yeah, turnover is insane. Like a real veteran is like the 4 or 5 year mark, but the 2 year mark, you're not considered a newbie by any marks. You're very well respected, and you're like expected to know most
And do you
things.
mind me asking how much you are paid for the work that you do, only being there for 2 years?
Yes. So to generalize this, I'm not going to go straight specific into my numbers,
Yeah,
but
obviously.
for the let's say Fortune 100 tech companies, your first year out of school as a software engineer, you will be making somewhere between 180 and 220.
Wow.
On your first promotion, you are floating the 300 range, and then your second promotion, you're floating the 400 to 500
Do you
range.
do you feel like that these people are being overcompensated, or why is it like, listen, in America, people aren't getting paid 180,000 starting unless you're like a doctor. You know what I mean? Like that's a crazy starting figure. Even pilots that come right into their careers, they're making 30, 40,000, and over like a decade or 15 years, then they hit the 200, $300,000 mark. Do you feel that that's like just why are they compensating you guys that heavily? Is it time consuming work? Is it just because there's such demand for you guys? Like why so much?
So there's a lot to talk about on this topic. So when I say those numbers, I'm not making that in cash. A large percentage is in stock-based compensation, not a stock
Mm,
option, but a stock grant. So it's free stock. It is just salary. I don't buy into the stock, if that makes sense.
got it. So they're compensating. So let's say you make $200,000 a year. Let's use an easy figure. How much of that money
It
is
might be
cash?
150 cash, 50 stock, and then some amount in bonus, usually 10 to 15%, but that varies per
And you
company.
could take that stock at any point, sell it if you wanted to.
You accrue it over the year, so it's just like paid out. So if it's the 50/50 over 12, and you can sell it
And are
immediately,
you on
like on the paycheck,
are you on
essentially.
like a contract basis, or are you like
No,
no? So you're straight up employee. This is your salary.
at will employee,
Got it.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so that's really
But
interesting.
to go back a second to why the compensation. So demand is definitely part of it. The computer science curriculum is not easy. It's a very theoretical and math heavy curriculum, which is not for everyone. But the real reason why I think compensation is so high is what I was noting earlier, where as engineers we build something, and this stays built far longer than after we finish doing it. So, like as a lawyer, lawyers make good money. I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah.
You're paid for the work you do. As a software engineer, you're paid for work that keeps on working even after you're done working on it. So, not me personally, but like other people, 5, 6 years of experience might have 20 or 30 projects that are still generating revenue or easing like other engineers' work. And this is why engineers are paid so much.
So
Compared to a traditional engineer, they still have to manufacture those goods. We don't have to manufacture anything. We make it. We pay for like the compute or like the computers that run it.
mhm.
But other than that, it stays running
which this
and generates
this
income.
kind of wanted me to just lead into this question. What do you do as a software engineer? Can you dumb it down for people that don't understand? Like, what is your job? What are you making?
Yeah, so it really depends. An analogy I like to use that kind of helps people understand is when people think software engineer, they think coding. I guess. Like, would you say that's true for
Yeah,
you?
I would something along those lines with a bunch of weird numbers and shit on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So coding is equivalent to like writing to a lawyer. Like a lawyer writes, software engineer codes, but you don't pay a lawyer to write. You pay a lawyer to think about what they need to write to like win the lawsuit or win the case. For a software engineer, we think about like business needs, and what we need to do to like make business needs and business goals a reality through software.
Okay. So
So a lot of my days kind of I sit and I think, and I, for more or less of a better term, I don't do anything until I'm like, oh, this is something I can do, and then I go into like resource gathering, doing investigations of how something should be built, and then
so
building it.
you're at kind of free will to work on whatever you want, or does somebody come to you and say, "Hey, Blind, this is what we're working on, or this is what we want to. We need a solution to this." You know?
Yes and no. So depending on your team, it's very free will. Sometimes you have top-down directives, but for most companies, at least the bigger Fortune 500 ones, Facebook, Google, etc., it's very engineer driven. So say I'm on the feed team, like the one who curates your timeline.
Mhm.
I'm coming up with ideas that I think will grow the business more so than people above me.
And who signs off on those ideas? Like, let's say you work on the feed team for Facebook. Okay.
Yeah.
That once again for people that don't understand, like your timeline of how you see things or whatnot. Let's say you come up with an idea to change something, right? And you make it whatever. How high up does that go up to the chain before we see it? Is that something that's going all the way to
Oh, it
Zuckerberg?
doesn't really. No, rarely things go up to the sea level.
Really?
Usually, so you write a. There's two phases for like a product team. A product team is people who make product features, and an infrastructure team is like people who make sure the app runs. And you guys have no idea about infrastructure, and that's how it should be. So, speaking from the product team, because it's a little bit easier to understand, you write two documents, usually a product document explaining your product,
Mhm.
and then you write an engineering document explaining how you're going to build that product. And that circulates maybe a bunch of people around your seniority level. So, maybe one promotion above you, maybe two. You get that signed off by generally two or three people, and you're good to build it.
So you're a cre- so
Some
you're
things
so
do have to go through legal, but most of the time it
you're a
doesn't.
creator.
Yeah, we're creators more so than like just like code monkeys.
So
Code monkey being like I write code all
because
day.
I was always thinking that the people that are coming up with these ideas for like Facebook or Google or whatever, those are the top guys that have the idea and then they funnel it out. But you're saying no, it's these unknown engineers that are like, hey, let's make, I'm just going to use for example like Twitter right now has Twitter Spaces. Are you saying that was an engineer's idea and they just said, fuck it, let's do it, and then it went all the way up, something like that, or is that like a top
I,
down?
I can't say for sure, but more likely than not, it was an engineer's idea. I can
Wow.
tell you most of the ideas I've seen in my 2 to 3 years working have just been engineers' ideas.
So it's a lot of creativity.
Yeah, yeah, we're paid to. So, salary employees, no one cares if I work or don't work 40 hours a week. It's about what impact I do with the work I do. So, I've seen people get promoted to very high positions making $1, $2 million a year who work 10, 15 hours a week, but they just really know what to build and can have the mind to figure out what to build.
So it's kind of like, you develop, like, let's say you create something. Let's say you were the brains behind Instagram Live, right? That was your idea, right? Clearly,
Yeah,
Instagram Live is a big thing, right? They promote it. It's a big
yeah.
thing. Are you saying that like if that was you behind it, they're moving you up two, three spots and
Not two, it's generally one, but I actually have a story that I can provide that gives you the perfect level of
yeah, go
insight
for it.
for this. There's a Facebook intern way back in the day. I've never used this feature, but apparently it was huge that in iMessage, or not iMessage, it's Apple, Facebook Messenger,
Mhm.
you could put like stickers in the chat. Do you know what I'm talking
Yes.
about? An intern came up with that idea. When she came back full time, she was getting $250,000 in stock a year.
Wow.
So her total compensation was about $400,000 a year, first year out of college.
And are a lot of these engineers young that they're hiring? Are
Uh,
they?
yeah, so the average age of an engineer is probably somewhere between 25 and 35. 40 is considered old in tech. There's an ageism problem right now. but that is starting to go away. It was much more rampant.
Talk about that more.
Yeah, so because it's a very quick moving field, like technologies used to build Facebook 10 years ago are no longer relevant.
Hmm.
So they had the idea that younger people are more up to date with new technologies, which is not always true, but definitely can be. And so careers tend to slow down a lot after about the age of 40, and people tend to stick around companies longer because it becomes harder to find new jobs.
Wow, that's interesting. Um, okay, and so let's kind of get into your job a little more. What you wanted to talk about. You were saying for the company that you work for, there's constantly problems with this service, right? Um,
Yeah, so not just my company, every company, there's like some like between company chatter of other engineers in similar roles as me. But for Google, Facebook, Amazon, Lyft, Uber, Netflix, DoorDash, the list goes up, Twitter, especially Twitter right now, things are constantly breaking and it is invisible to the end user, um, which is kind of a miracle, in my opinion. Like when you go to google.com, I think nine, probably like 1 out of 1,000 times it doesn't work. But every single day at like Google and all these other companies I listed, there's probably 5 to 10 to 20 very important things broken that are just invisible to like the average
so
user.
very important back end, like bones to whatever the company is doing. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So when you
So
say they're
like
broken, like we can't see them from the outside, but on the inside they're having major internal issues.
yeah. So
Yeah.
trying to think. Twitter had a good outage recently. This is public information, so you guys are definitely okay to provide this. um, Twitter's login service died. But if you're already logged in, I'm sure if you guys have a Twitter, you have that stay signed in field.
Hmm.
So you couldn't log into Twitter. I think it was for 2 days, but most people didn't notice this because they just stay signed into Twitter permanently. And this is like an example of like a very critical backbone of Twitter that was broken, but it's invisible to the average user.
So so when these companies have let's call it like a broken bone, right? The
Yeah,
the goal is to keep, like, if they break a leg, keep walking. And
yeah. Keep walking, or at least give the appearance of keeping
and then
walking.
while
Sometimes it's definitely not,
and
but
then while
it
that
looks
leg is
like it is.
broken, for example, are there people trying to fix it as the company is walking? Like, and they're trying to do it in the most inconspicuous way as possible to get it up.
Yeah, so on call is a pretty big thing in being a software engineer. It's not really talked about. The average on call shift is 7 days, 24 hours a day, and then it rotates through your team.
Wow.
And if something breaks and it's under your ownership, 2 a.m., you're waking up and you're fixing
And how
that.
do you get notified of that? You got a pager or what?
Um, yeah, there's an app called PagerDuty, but a pager's basically
And
the
I
same
mean, your
thing.
phone will just start blowing up till you fix it.
Blowing up goes through all silencing. Like the only way to avoid it's turning off your phone. And if I turn off my phone, it'll go off to my manager. If my manager's phone is off, it'll go off to his manager all the way up to the CEO at like the most extreme cases,
Really?
which doesn't happen, but it can happen if that makes sense.
So so you guys don't have, it's not like your average 9 to 5, but there are times when you're on call, and if shit hits the fan, you could be working 24 hours. It doesn't matter till till the bone is fixed. Right.
Yeah, anecdotally, I have heard of people being online. Actually, Google just put out a YouTube video of this. They were hacked back in like 2012 or 13. It's an interesting YouTube series. People are on call literally 24/7 in the Google office, sleeping there, trying to get this hacker out of their systems.
Have you experienced that where you, obviously you can't talk about the company you work for, but where you guys have had a hacker and
Yes.
you're like trying to, you know, get him? What does it feel like? Is it like you're at war trying to get this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. It feels a little bit like war. A few years back, there's a situation where I was on call for about 16 hours a day. The company's not inhumane, so they know people need to sleep, and like they're working on this for 24 hours, you're probably not going to be useful. So it's a bunch of people throwing in their time and sacrificing sleep and other things. And it just feels like war. You're looking through it, you're doing like forensics, like computer forensic, like okay, who's accessing what parts of the system? How can we lock them out? How can we lock them out without users getting
So
affected?
so is it kind of like it's a wall, right? And a hacker poked a hole through it. And then once they get past that wall, then they just start fucking with everything.
Wreaking havoc.
So
Yeah,
so
then it's a game of cat and
so
mouse.
your job is to find that to follow the crumbs back to that hole and get them out.
And you patch that hole first so you can't have other people come in, and then get them out when they're
When you
in.
say when you got to patch that hole so others don't come in, once this hacker comes in, did they tell a bunch of other people, "Hey, I made this hole,
Yep,
come in"?
yep. That is a
Where are
very
they?
common
What?
tactic of
Where are
hackers.
they saying this shit?
That's unbeknownst to me. I'm sure there's people who specialize in engineering security who are more tuned in,
Mm,
but this is something that is not part of my job,
got it.
so I don't tune in on my own. For old viewers, though, if you guys want to see a good example of this, Google put out a documentary called Operation Aurora, like Aurora Borealis on YouTube. It's a few episodes, and it goes really deep into this topic.
Really? I gotta check it out. So and then that kind of leads me to my next thing. Without obviously saying the company you work for again, you've told us that you guys are constantly getting hacked or DDoSed. How can you differentiate between the the no life nerd at his home that has nothing to do all day and it's just like, I'm gonna wake up this morning and fuck with Google or Facebook or Microsoft or DoorDash or Uber or whatever, right? How can you differentiate that from that person and someone like the Chinese government or the Russian government or another even the Iranian government recently has been really kicking up their hacking capabilities. How is there a way you can tell who's who or like differentiate between the both?
So yes and no, and it's not as clear cut as it seems. So, like, a lot of big hacks can be performed by like 14-year-olds. Like, it's not uncommon to get hacked by like a 16-year-old. There's a chain of hacks a couple months ago, which it was actually a 16-year-old in London who was wreaking havoc. Um, I can't say for certain about governments, but in my minds, governments are going to be much more skilled than your average 16-year-old, and they will make sure they get in and are not seen and are probably just waiting. Like, there's no way to guarantee someone is not in one of these companies just waiting to do something.
Have you guys had a government hack you guys yet?
Um, Not that I am personally aware of. I tend to be in the loop, but this might be outside of my pay grade.
Got it. Talk to me about like let's say for example you guys are hacked by somebody. Obviously, like you said, you plug the hole first, then you go get the guy or the girl, whoever it is.
Yeah.
When you go to get them, are you just getting them and getting them out, or are you getting them, getting their information, and then passing it over to a relevant federal agency that's going to go physically go get them? Or is this stuff where you
The
can't even track them?
the latter, the FBI, NSA, and like the Intercom or Interpol are very skilled at tracking people down. Rockstar Games, the what is it called? Like the publisher of Grand Theft Auto, which I'm sure people are familiar with, was recently hacked by a 16-year-old, and the company just gave the FBI like whatever forensics they were able to create. The FBI worked with London. London found the kid.
So are these companies? I mean, they have working relationships with the NSA, the FBI. Like, I mean, this isn't like they have to. There's a point of contact is what I'm trying to get at that they can easily get to if they've got a problem.
Yeah, it's in the best interest. Multiple tech companies have been prosecuted by the federal government for not cooperating because the federal government's interested in knowing what user data was stolen, how did this affect the customers, and they don't really care about the company. They're just like, what did you guys lose? So it's in the company's best interest to
So they're
cooperate with these three-letter
and they're
agencies.
pretty proactive.
Yes. And I just want to emphasize because no, these companies are not handing over information to the NSA, just being like, here's like Joe Schmo at whatever address. But when there is a hack, communications tend to ramp up pretty significantly.
But in your position, does it maybe also open the door for some concern that these three-letter agencies, are while they are doing their jobs and providing oversight and also wanting to get to the bottom of it, it's no secret that there's some concern that these three-letter agencies are kind of getting some sort of influence, maybe. Um,
Yeah,
one
there's definitely that. I try to be
one perfect example right now is the Twitter files. Okay, I don't know if you've been following it. Um, it's indisputable that, and whether there's people that say, "Hey, listen, there's nothing really big here," and then there's people saying this is huge. I'm not giving my opinion, but I'm saying that it is clear that the FBI can easily contact people at Twitter previously and say they want things reviewed or this and that, um, which has opened the door to some people claiming that the government's trying to censor people, and some other people are saying, "Hey, this is just literally what happens everywhere. This happens at Facebook. This happens at Twitter, Microsoft, Google, Uber, DoorDash." Is there something there?
so um in my opinion, there definitely is, but I don't know to the same degree. I think a lot of this has come from Elon Musk. I view him as a unreliable narrator.
Really?
I think there is something there. I don't think it's going to be as truthful as he is stating. To double back though, I think there is this topic around social media though, because it's so heavily used. But at the same time, because people use it so much, they are handing over a lot of this data. The fact the FBI even knew about this going on just meant this was like publicly available, and now they are investigating it. I think it's very rare in cases, unless someone has terroristic like affiliations, that FBI is like, "Hey, let me see their messages," because most of this is just published on the internet
Right,
publicly.
which
If that makes
that kind
sense
of brings
to
up a
you.
question somebody had for you. It's no secret that Al Shabaab, Al Qaeda, ISIS, all of those people, they utilize social media, you know, um, and that opens the door, obviously, to these companies having to, take that shit down. Um, if the company you work for or a company you've previously worked for, um, are there like bots? Are there things that they have pre-programmed that they're looking for? Like, for example, if I'm some terrorist from ISIS and I went on Facebook and I posted ISIS is recruiting, or I'm paraphrasing here, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Like,
get what you're
yeah.
saying.
If I went on there
So
and I said we're recruiting, I'm pretty sure my Facebook would be shut down in a couple minutes. You
So yes and no. Where there's more ID validation, like certain companies who are capable of that, like really fingerprinting someone, and you come up with someone on like a world watch list, you are going to get shut down. Say you're just like a low level henchman in like a terroristic organization, it's going to be pretty hard to shut you down because they have no idea who you are unless you're saying, "Hey, come join ISIS. ISIS is great. I'm recruiting for ISIS." And actually having some skill behind hiding what you're actually doing, you're probably not going to be found that
But
quickly,
my question is, do you
if
guys
that makes
do you
sense.
guys have software that's specifically looking for keywords, key video, key audio? Like,
Yeah,
yes, you do.
yes,
And
yeah.
and my question
So
is,
I can speak to this
who?
to YouTube very well. There's a big court case actually going on about this where YouTube was knowing about kind of ISIS recruiting going on, and they did not take down the video fast enough, even though it was flagged.
My question though, like, so you do acknowledge that they do have, I don't know, am I saying it right? Bots? Is that a good terminology to use?
Yeah, that's
So they
yeah,
they have
just
they
like
have
automated
these they
processes.
have these bots that are looking for keywords, key audio, key, whatever. Who that's a software engineer that had to make that, right?
Yeah,
Okay. How do you know what words to look for? Who's providing you that? Are you doing your own research, or someone saying, "Hey, here's a lot of things that terrorists usually say, you know, flag all these words, and then we need to have the bot." Like, how do you get there to find something to review that?
so the process I would take, and like this is not indicative of all engineers, but just my process I would take would be if I had some content that we were supposed to block, I would analyze it. So say like a post on Facebook, I would pull out keywords and then I would test it. I would go back through every post on Facebook and test it and see how many new things I flag with it, how many false positives I get, and how many false negatives I get. So like how many times I flag your aunt as a terrorist even though she's not, or how many times I don't flag a terrorist. And I'd analyze that again, and I would just repeatedly do this until I have a system that looks good to me.
And so you say good to you. So I mean that means
Well, not
you have a lot of power.
good.
I mean, let's be
Yeah,
real. Like,
good to me and peer
right, but
reviewers, but not
okay, so it's not just your decision. Like, you also work with other people.
a significant amount. It might be 5 or 10 other people.
Does that concern you? Okay, let's step back for a
Yes.
second. That you have that much power. Okay, you really do. That you could make some sort of software that flags certain words, right? That then could potentially. I'm assuming that once you make this kind of software, it would lead the bot to then, if you hit enough check marks, it suspends your account, right? Takes it down, puts it up for review, whatever, right? Um,
Yeah.
I mean, now, granted, I'm not saying you're a bad actor, but if somebody, this the big thing going around right now, whether people agree with it or not, is some people claim that they're being silenced more than others because of their political ideologies. And it's interesting. People just think it's conservatives, but it's also there's some very liberal people too that are claiming that they're being um, silenced or you know
They're being
being
suppressed.
suppressed. Perfect word. Does
Yeah.
and that could be you know blind here could be the one making that software that's determining whether to put somebody in a position to temporarily suspend them. I'm assuming that once you're temporarily suspended, there's a whole team these companies have that review to make sure it's legitimate or not. Because let's be real, bots aren't perfect, right? They can mess up, but that's a lot of power that gets left on you. And
So, yeah, there will be legal review in these kinds of
mhm,
situations. I can talk about suppression algorithms. I know a decent amount about them. And what tends to happen is user suppression leads up to real suppression. So, take the dislike button that doesn't exist on YouTube anymore, right? And say some notable conservative posted a video on YouTube and a ton of liberal users dislike it. That is now going to be deranked and suppressed. This is going to be a bit different than like a word list and botting, which we were just talking
mhm,
about. And this is kind of defined as expected behavior. Something like the word list could happen. I can tell you personally, for all the companies I have knowledge about, we couldn't go and like pick like a conservative talking point and silence it. That would be against the law. We would stop being known as just like a social media company, and we would be now like a publisher because we're saying, hey, this is not allowed on here and it's not, illegal content. Legal would go through it and it would happen. However, engineers are smart enough to figure out ways around these to make things that hit that legal gray area where legal's like this is fine and could like target different ideologies
mhm.
to suppress.
Does that? But does it concern you though that people like you have that kind of amount of power where
Yes.
you could really create something that could suppress somebody? And now, granted, there's a legal team that would review it or whatnot, but I mean, those people have a lot of power too.
Yes, absolutely.
So it is a concern. How many people, like on a project like that, where you're creating keywords to flag that could lead to an account suspension or a what's it called when they
Shadow ban might
there
be
you
the
go,
term you're looking
when they
for.
shadow ban you or whatnot. Like for example, our Instagram account. Maybe you can answer this for me. I'm not alluding that you work for Instagram or Facebook, but maybe you'd have an idea. You cannot search real news, no bullshit. Try it right now. It will not come up. Like, you know what I mean? It'll come up with our backup first. Why?
So I have looked into this because I saw you guys posted it. And I can actually search real news, no BS.
Well, no BS, but no bullshit.
No, no bullshit.
Actually, you
No
can.
bullshit. Sorry. Yeah.
That's weird
Let me just make sure this isn't. Okay, this has none of my information on.
because but do you already follow us? Okay, but
Yeah.
that's because you
Let
follow
me.
us. Do you have another account that doesn't
Okay,
follow us?
I do have another account that does not follow.
Try it
Yep.
on an
Give
account
me a
that doesn't
second to
follow
switch
us.
to it. Real news. No. Yeah, it comes up right away.
Really? So that's
I have 3 of
that's
them.
weird because
This is a separate account too, as you can see, I'm not
yeah,
following.
that's weird. Well, I guess it changed. It used to not pop up. You would have it would bring you to our backup, which is why if you go to our backup,
S
we put in the bio, if you're
so
looking for us, here's our actual account. Click here.
here's my 2 cents on this, and I can't be for sure without, like, actually investigating
Right.
this if I worked at one of those companies. The number one thing is if you're shadow banned to everyone except your immediate followers, so it means not a single person would be able to find your account,
Hmm.
and if your immediate followers tagged you, that post would also be invisible.
If my immediate followers what
Tagged your account or, like, commented
reposted
with your
it.
account, like, "Hey, you should follow," yeah, that would also be invisible. So, a good way to check if you're shadow banned is, like, flat account growth. If you're growing, you're probably not shadow banned. One reason for this could be the losing a bone. Say a database was lost, like, it went down, but your backup account is in a different database, that could be why your backup account would be found and not your main account.
It's interesting.
And this is a very common thing. The company I currently work for has been having a lot of database issues without going into more details.
Yeah. Um, that's interesting. But like at the end of the day, let's say for example, you're a software engineer that hates, I don't know. Let's say they hate my page. I'm just going to use me for an example. Could you indirectly create something that would make it difficult or that could fucking get my page banned? Is there something you could do through a project indirectly that could have an impact on my page, and maybe you slip it in there and all your peers that are reviewing it have no idea, but because you have so much power, right, it could take somebody out that you don't like.
So it certainly would be possible at like smaller companies. I think any of the big companies like Facebook, Instagram, obviously you're on those. It would be very hard to do that.
Hmm.
Work is still peer reviewed heavily. It needs to get checked off. Like if I make a code change, I can't just make that code change and be like, "Hey, it's live." It has to be checked off by 2 or 3 people.
But 2 or 3 people is not a lot of people.
You're right. It's not a lot, but so like I couldn't put in real news, no BS. Like that would get definitely caught in a peer review. Could I form rules that target your account? I could.
Right.
However, the spread of that would be pretty large, and as you
It wouldn't
know,
just impact me, it could impact tons of people. And if you piss
yeah.
a lot
So
of
this is where
people
it gets a
off,
little
you piss a
trickier.
lot of people off, then it's not going to go
Your
through.
project gets killed, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You're wearing a mask, so you can be completely real with me, and we're not going to reveal who you are, obviously. Have you done anything at any of these companies that is unethical and either driven by your own opinion of something or um, an opinion of the company that they don't want people to know about?
I have personally not. I do know back in the day being about 10 years ago, stuff like that happened a lot
Can
more
you give me an
rampantly.
example of
But
something, maybe not specifically from your company, but something that you know as a software engineer that was unethical? Just don't reference your company.
yeah, give me 1 second to kind of flip through my book of like this kind of targeting.
Yeah, you have a book.
Oh, no, like a mental
Oh
book.
yeah,
Oh, here's a clear one. Facebook and Myanmar. I don't know if you guys have heard about this.
no, talk about it.
Facebook was suppressing revolutionaries in Myanmar for like 10, 15
Oh, the
years, and
country, Myanmar. Yeah,
it's the
Myanmar.
revolutionaries in Myanmar, yeah,
Right, which
and it was very targeted, very targeted. Like I don't even know how else to go about this. Like it was very clearly the revolutionaries and not the government that they were trying to overthrow because they were
does that concern you that does
tyrannical.
that concern you that a company that has that much power is doing something like that?
Oh, it's very concerning. Stuff like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think those are the big three. Amazon has more power over, and Google have more power over like your spending,
Hmm.
ad serving, what content they show you to make you spend money, which is bad. But the amount of social power Twitter and Facebook have on the world population is immense. Facebook has 3 billion users. That's half of the entire world. is subject to Facebook's power.
Of the developed world, yeah.
Yep.
I think
I
the
think
world
even in
population is
third world
pushing
countries
20,
is
25.
actually more for Facebook. Here's a kind of dark thing. Facebook will give you a phone in third world countries that comes with Facebook pre-installed and unable to be deleted, and they will pay for your Wi-Fi and your cell service as long as you're on Facebook.
Why?
Power.
What power do they get
Well,
having their stuff automatically installed on a phone to a person in a
um,
third world country? Why? Like Zuckerberg is actually, you bring that up. He's doing this big thing. I don't know if he's done it yet, where he's giving free internet to the world. Um, I know Elon's doing kind of the same thing with Starlink. I don't know if it's free. I think there's a money thing behind that, but I know Zuck's big thing is free internet for the world. Like you're gonna have it, you know. Why would he want to do that? Is it because he's a good guy, or is there something more sinister or deep to it?
I like to be positive thinking about
Yeah.
this, like as positive as I can, and that it isn't about he's trying to be
Hmm.
sinister, but he is a CEO of a for-profit company, so he is trying to expand his profits. I think the thing that isn't thought about is the influence he's gaining. I can't answer whether he knows what he's doing or if he's just trying to expand profits, but it has the nasty side effect of the influence also being expanded, if that makes sense.
Got it. That's interesting. Um,
So,
Go ahead.
like, are there truly evil people in this world?
Yeah.
Yes. Is Mark Zuckerberg one? I can't answer
Right.
that. However, I can answer, like, he might not be thinking about the side effects of his action, or he will be overlooking them to expand his company's profits, which he is
Do
beholden
you also
to.
think that
As
maybe another angle could be that maybe he's actually like as you said, a good guy, and maybe there's people in his company that are being influenced by people on the outside. You think that's a possibility?
yeah, yeah, like these companies are ran by so many people. Like as you said, engineers have a lot of power. Like I am a relatively low level engineer. If I was a higher level engineer with less good motives, like I could definitely flex those motives and get stuff
Do
moving.
you- or even, for example, and it doesn't even have to be someone from the U.S. government, like a foreign adversary, for example. Let's take China or Iran or Russia. They could realistically, if we're being real here, have a spy, right? That is a software engineer like you that went through schooling and all did all the shit, right? But in the background, they have them go get a job at Facebook, and their job is to create something that, you know, that there's an underlying thing down there that is going to push maybe a different narrative or push. The only reason I say this, it's actually interesting, and I haven't disclosed this yet, but some of my team knows about it. We were contacted by an individual that, long story short, we have pretty good reason to believe that we were being probed, right, by possibly a three-letter agency, not to like, censor us or take us down or anything like that, but to make sure that we're not being influenced by a foreign adversary when we post our news. We write news and over 700,000 people follow us and read it. And in addition to that, we're reaching, I think we've impressions over 70 million people. That's a lot of power, just like how you have a lot of
Yeah,
power. It would be of an interest for like the US government to make sure that China isn't paying me $100,000 a month to post articles. You see what I'm saying? That could
yeah, no,
sway
it
somebody's
totally makes
mind.
sense.
It kind of goes to the same thing. Could somebody be in your position that could actually be a spy for another foreign
So
country, and they're pushing some sort of mechanic, or are having you do you have the ability to pull my data from that company that you work for? No,
no,
you don't.
I mean, I do, but like it gets immediately audited. It goes to like audit
Talk to me
review.
about that.
When I go to that, when I go to a tool to look up someone's data, including my own, so if I go look at my own data, it gets audited. It goes to an audit review team. The team reviews it, and they're like, so let's say I looked up Beyonce, I would get
Yeah,
fired.
so let me ask you something. So let's say you ran, let's go with your name, Blind Doe. Okay, let's go with that. You're telling me that you could literally, okay, just search and you could find out what could you get. Let's go from point A to point Z. What could you get from searching that name? Could you get an email?
All user data,
Email,
all user data.
address, phone number.
I mean, anything you've provided
Okay. Could you get
or we've generated.
okay.
So we could say maybe you're really into fruit, and we can find out your favorite fruit is an orange because we've generated that data based on your usage
Okay. Could you
to everything you provide, like date of birth, address, email.
okay. So you obviously you get the data that I give you, but you also get data that you guys might be able to put together by me using your app.
Yes.
So, for example, if
Yeah.
you worked for a social media company, which I'm not saying you do or don't, you could get a general idea as to what I like.
Yes.
And you're telling me as a software engineer, you have the ability to know that. But I'll kind of go to my next part. You could go find out what I like, generally speaking.
Generally speaking, there are some
Now, obviously, you're saying
obstacles that have to be hopped over, but it is possible, is what I'm
right.
saying.
So if you wanted to, you could find out. Let me ask you, have you ever done it?
No, I'm certain I would be
Do you
fired.
know anybody that's done it?
Yes, actually, an intern did it at a specific social media company, and they're immediately
Okay,
fired. I think they're looking up an ex of theirs.
which is a concern. And do these
Yeah,
companies notify, like for that person that looked up an ex of theirs, does that person have any idea?
I believe some action is taken. I think legal action is even taken against that employee
Hmm.
because it is a breach of contract for like
But
the employment agreement.
does that, so for example, you said it was an ex of somebody. Let's say I'm that ex, right? Do I know what happened, or do they keep it
I
internal?
I cannot answer that. I have not been through the process,
Okay.
and it's not outlined in any employment
In your
agreements
opinion,
I have
do you think
read.
they find out?
These big companies, my guess is no. The
Right.
company is trying to protect itself, which is in
Because
its
if I
best
found
interest.
out that an intern of, let's use Facebook for example, looked up my private information and they had to disclose that to me, I could probably sue the shit out of Facebook.
Yeah, probably,
So that's probably a good
probably.
reason why they're not disclosing that. But you are
Yeah,
saying that they deal with it and they have audits. So I kind of want to talk to you about that.
the firing is in like 15 minutes. Like these get
So they've
reviewed
got people auditing this
immediately.
stuff, and that's what I wanted to get into. So like,
So let's say you have like I'm working on my computer. I look someone up, and you're the auditor. Say I look behind the masked man up. It's gonna pop up a notification on their computer. They're gonna click it, and they're gonna be like, "Okay, this is not work related."
so there's a team of people at every one of these major companies that job is just to audit. Kind of
Yeah,
like the we
audit
did a
data
podcast.
usage, data
We did a
access.
podcast with a police officer, and I asked him, like, can you just, if you're driving around, could you just run somebody's plates? And he said, hell no, man. If I do, they might ask me in 2 or 3 months, why'd you run that plate of that white Lexus? Okay.
Yeah,
And he has to have an answer for that. Now, you're saying kind of the same thing, but it doesn't take 2 or 3 months. It's instant.
yeah. It's you'll get fired before the end of the day.
Seriously.
Yeah, you'll be out the door, and when they fire you at these tech companies, it's not like you get walked into a room, they talk to you, you get kicked out of your computer, you get kicked out of your email, you get kicked out of everything instantly.
Talk to me how that happens. If you got fired right now, how does it go
They
down?
they click a button, I'm locked out, and then I basically just wait at a desk for someone to pick me up. I've seen this happen.
And they do that to protect the company to make sure you don't do
Like,
something
yeah, I
malicious.
mean, like as an engineer, I could turn off things if I want. I'd get sued, but if I was like, I'm getting fired, let's go blow up the company from the inside. That is possible if they didn't just kick my access out
But once they
immediately.
kick your access out, you can't do shit.
Yeah,
They've made it bulletproof.
I mean, you lose like your logins immediately kicked out and deactivated. Like you can't really do anything unless you're gonna go a very illegal route and then like find a way to hack them. But at that point, anyone could hack any
Right, and
company.
you know your company's capabilities, you would likely be caught.
Oh yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And they would put you against a wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're it's not gonna be a good
Right. So they
situation.
they deter that. That's interesting though. So like you said, you do have that ability, but if you do that, there's an audit team that will get you. But now, granted, these audit teams, these aren't bots, these are people, right?
These are
So
people.
these people could just, whatever, right? Or these people that are on these audit teams, they could be doing it too, right? And who audits them? So it's one of the
Then it's just auditing up the chain.
got it.
So like the audit team gets audited by the audit manager, who gets audited by the audit director,
Right. So it's an
and like
audit of an audit of an
eventually at some
audit.
point there's someone who can do it. But
There's eyes.
realistically, with the world, anyone can do anything.
Got it.
You know what I mean? You can't have a perfect system.
Got it. That's so interesting. Let me ask you, because we were talking about data, as a software engineer, okay, what have you done to protect your data, and what would you tell normal people that have no idea how they can protect their data?
To protect your data, like for number one, don't use social media, and if you do use it, feel free to use it as a browser, but do not generate your own content. If you take a look at my Instagram, which is the only piece of social media that remains, I have not posted anything since 2018. It's been good 5 years,
Why?
so I have not generated anything for them to look up. Um, I am basically invisible online, is what that means. However, my usage of Instagram is definitely tracked. Instagram knows my hobbies because that's what I follow. Board sports, other sports, cooking, hiking, general hobbies. They know that's what I like.
Hmm.
Another thing is use browser containers so you can't be tracked from going from one website to another. If you use Facebook, you're getting tracked all over the internet. There's something called Privacy Badger, which kind of hides your activity to these big corporations, and it's just a little browser extension.
What's it called?
Privacy Badger.
Privacy Badger.
Yeah.
And this isn't an ad. You're just telling us about this.
I mean, it's an example. There's a
There's a
million
million.
that exist. This is just one.
So let's say, for example, let's say I'm on Facebook, and I go from Facebook to Google. We're completely different apps now. I'm talking on my phone. I'm not even talking about on the computer. Let's say I go from Facebook to Google to book a flight on United that I don't book because I was just looking at prices. Okay. What's going to happen when I go back to Facebook?
They will know you went there.
Well,
I forget exactly how to do it because I've been using these extensions for so long. But you know when you see at the end of a link those random characters, it just looks like gibberish.
yeah, like
That's a tracker.
www.facebook.com/ and then a bunch of shit.
Yeah, that's often a tracker, and that continues with you as you browse the internet, and that's how they track you.
And what are they tracking?
Your usage, where you're going, what things you like, how long you spend on this
For
thing.
what?
Um, for better ad targeting, which is how Facebook makes their money and Google makes their money.
So, for example, going back to what I said, I was on Facebook, now I'm on Google, completely different apps, right? And I'm
Yeah.
on Google looking at a United flight that I might book, but I'm like, should I wait to see if the price drops? Okay. Let's say I don't book it. Let's just say I looked. I go back to Facebook. I'm telling you, I've seen this where I then
Yeah.
get an ad for United, or I get an ad for Priceline or Expedia. You're telling me that that's why. It's because it saw what I did. It saw that I didn't book it. There's some sort of bot that was created by some sort of software engineer that was able to say,
Yeah.
this guy is trying to book a flight right now to Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay. And he didn't do it. He didn't pull the trigger, which means now it's time to bring in all these companies that pay all this money for these ads, and let's just start throwing it in his face till he clicks one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
And I can tell you some concern here is like you went to Google. Google is not helping Facebook, their competitors. Like this is just advanced software to track you along your internet journey.
But Facebook, even though they're competitors, like I just got the other day, I don't know what app I was using, and it said maybe it was Uber. I don't know who it was. And it was like allow app to track you on other apps. And I'm like, the fuck no. What the fuck? So I said no, but let's say I said yes. Are you telling me that if I go from Facebook to Twitter, it's watching what I'm doing on Twitter?
Yeah, you're just getting watched. It's not watching like every movement you're doing. It's just saying like general things. So like if you go to United.com, they're not checking you're going to Ohio. They're checking, oh, you're looking for a flight.
And then if it saw that I went on Google and I typed in what's the weather in Cincinnati, could
Yes.
whatever's tracking me put together Okay, he just looked for a flight on United. Then he just Googled the weather. Clearly, this guy is going to, Cincinnati, Ohio, because he just checked the weather. He's looking for a flight on United. Let's shoot him an ad that kind of is targeted to Cincinnati, Ohio on an airline.
Yes.
And
After this
somebody
interview,
had to make that.
if you give me time after this interview, I'll send you some good YouTube videos that explain this.
Yeah, no,
That you
I
can send
will.
along with the podcast. I am not familiar enough with this technology
Yeah.
to really explain it, but the gist is, yes, someone designed the software that can track
Let
people
me ask
along
you
the
this too.
internet.
Sometimes, and maybe this makes me sound crazy, but I've had this conversation with other people. There's sometimes when I feel like I'm thinking about something and I see it. What is that shit? Am I just going crazy, or is
So
there something there?
there is something there. TikTok is notably
Yeah, it's
infamous
TikTok.
for its algorithm.
Yeah.
TikTok's algorithm can figure out your interests in about 30 minutes from using the app. 30 minutes is all TikTok needs to figure out what you like. And it is just very incredible engineering that these apps know who you are better than you know who you are sometimes.
And so when I'm thinking of something yesterday, like I have a French bulldog, right? And I was thinking sometimes they get dry noses, right? And I've
Yep.
been thinking about like I gotta buy something for him for his nose. All of a sudden I was on, I don't know if it was TikTok or Facebook Reels, or I don't know what it was, and I got an ad. But here's the thing: I didn't Google it. I didn't Google it. I didn't say it. I've just been thinking about it, and it came up. That's because it could somehow get to that conclusion that, hey, this guy has a Frenchie. He's watched videos on Frenchies. French bulldogs have dry nose problems. Let's give him an ad for dry nose thing. Which I'm gonna be honest with you, I bought it.
Yeah. That's exactly how this works. It finds patterns and exploits those patterns. And this is why I think one of the most evil things in today's society is this social media and ad targeting.
Why is it evil to you?
I mean,
This is what you do kind of for a living. I mean, to
yes,
an extent, yeah.
yeah, it is. And it
Why is
is
it
why I
evil
try
though?
to stay away from working on this kind of technologies and focus more on other things. But I think no app should know who I am better than I know who I am, or what I need better than I know what I need.
But but why is it evil? What's evil about it?
It's psychologically manipulative. Like if you can target ads, like you just said, dry nose. I know this is something important. I have a dog too. I want to take care of my dog, but they just targeted an ad so well, you immediately bought it.
Yeah, they did.
And if they can do that, they can target you with ideologies in the future. I don't believe this is happening now to the extent with the ads. I know you can get stuck in ideology holes where you just like see everything from one ideology, but you tend to agree with that before that happens. But what if they find out, oh, yes, this person would be very susceptible to like libertarian ideas. Let's just push him in that route. Like this is how you get these like very
Could they weaponize that and push you
they
away?
could in theory push you away from it also. I don't think it's
So
gone that
they
far
have too
yet,
much control.
but they have the control too.
Does that scare you?
Yes. And that's why I've been
So
celebrating Facebook and Twitter's collapse, but I don't think it's actually going to happen anymore.
so how do you change that? What would you do to change that? Because that's a lot of power.
I
Do they need
think
to be
they need
broken up?
to legislate against these curated feeds. Timelines should come back. Remember when it was a timeline, like you posted something at 102, it's 105. So the first thing I see is by time instead of having these apps pick what they want you to see. It should go back to how it used to be, and you can just see these feeds of stuff that happen by time, and you choose what you see versus a curated feed.
But if you did that, they would lose billions of dollars.
Yeah, they'd likely lose billions of dollars. And this is, I think, a problem of this gets a little bit outside my scope, but I think this is a problem of capitalism. If companies don't grow, they die because the stock market says if you're not growing, your stock should lose value. And the best way to
Is there a
grow
way?
is to build addiction.
Yeah, right. If you get addicted to a product, you're going to keep going
Yeah,
there. You're going to keep buying it, and they're going to keep making money on you.
yeah.
Let me ask you this: is there a way that I can see the data that I'm not going to name your company. I'm just going to name a ton, right?
The,
That
the,
Facebook.
the answer is yes. You, I think all of these companies you can request data from. I think there's a few that you might not. However, if you travel to London, I think once you're in the city of London, they have to give you your data because of some amazing laws London has put out.
So if I was to request my data from um, either Facebook, DoorDash, uh, United, Uber Eats, whatever, right? What would I expect from these companies?
I can't give you the specifics. I actually have never done that myself, but I can tell you with Google, you should expect so much data that you can't even store it.
Like, it does it even make sense in English?
Yeah, it would make complete sense in English. It would be photos. It would be like attributes. It would
Photos.
like if you
Photos
posted
of what?
photos. Say you posted a picture
Oh,
of your dog on Google, whatever their social media is.
can I demand that they delete it?
Yes, you can.
Really?
Yes.
Is there any software out there, or is there a company out there that can do this automated for you?
I think there might be now. I'm not
I was
aware
gonna
at the
say, because
minute.
if
I
there's
can.
not, maybe we need to talk.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
That's a good idea,
I'll
right?
do
Like,
some
because
investigation after
I
this.
saw I saw something I saw something where there's a company out there where you can download it and it will cancel all your subscriptions for you, right? It,
Yes, I need to use that actually. I've been spending a little too much money on.
yeah, but my thing is, like, it makes it easy, right? Is there something out there that could say, all right, guys, Facebook, Google, Uber, DoorDash, Amazon, everybody, send it over. I want a stack. Let's go. All the data, and then you just get it.
Yeah, like in theory, it shouldn't work too different from that subscription thing. Because the subscription thing, just remember when you use that subscription app.
Shit, if somebody's listening to this,
I mean, if someone's listening to this, they can already come up with the idea based off what we said. Like,
yeah, well,
it's
maybe we need to work on it.
yeah, okay. But just remember with that subscription app you're doing to cancel your subscriptions, you're giving them access
Yeah,
to your emails. Yeah. It's just
true. So then
data
that
access all the
company
way
now is
down the
using
lines.
it.
Yeah.
It's just a circle. Now they've got it.
Yeah.
Unless they're committed to not storing
Yeah.
your data.
And goes with trust. Like, how much do you trust Facebook? I don't. How much do you trust that place? I might actually trust them. Like, maybe they're just going to go and delete my subscriptions and we'll call it a day. And they're probably collecting data on me, like what subscriptions was he using? What subscriptions did he want to get rid of? Do I care about that data being collected? Maybe not so much. Do I care about
Yeah.
them going through every single one of my emails? Absolutely.
Which just kind of goes back, and I don't want to go backwards, but it's going back to, like, oh, a foreign adversary would love to get a spy into one of these companies. Like, if I was China, for example, let's be hypothetical here, and let's say I wanted I want to kind of sway lawmakers from not passing some sort of bill that's going to impact, I don't know, trade, right? It would probably behoove me to somehow get an employee at Facebook that works in um, or get not one employee, maybe a lot of employees that work in the audit team so that I could then maybe pull the data on Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi or Congressman Kevin McCarthy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
that makes
because then
sense.
I could know what they like, what they look at, what they search, how everything works. I mean, at that point, I know who you are. Like you said, these apps can almost know who you are better than how good you know yourself,
That
right?
makes sense. Personally,
Could happen.
I don't want to advocate for this, but if I was a foreign entity, I believe they have the power to go hack these people individually, and it feels like less effort than backdooring into
Oh,
these
really?
companies. Oh yeah, if I
But
wanted
the
to hack
chances
you,
go.
I don't know anything about hacking, but say I wanted to hack you, I could probably succeed with like a 95% chance in the next week.
But you hack somebody like Nancy Pelosi or Kevin McCarthy,
I bet
your
you'd
ass
be
is gonna.
almost
Yeah,
easier if you're like a foreign government.
but you, I wouldn't be surprised if those kind of people have somebody, the federal government's watching,
That's very true. That's very true.
right? So I'm just saying a covert way to do it. Get a guy that works at da 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 to move on up, and then you could pull the data on people and sway them. Which it goes back to the big thing, which is they have a lot of control.
Yeah. a lot of control.
Do you believe that big tech should be regulated
Oh,
by the federal
absolutely,
government,
absolutely. I think there's
even
a
if it makes your job harder?
absolutely, but I think here's the problem: the federal government is not capable of regulating big tech. Have you listened to
Why?
these Congress hearings with Zuckerberg talking to Congress?
Right.
They just
Where they
don't
don't
understand.
understand
Yeah.
things. So how do you fix
We need
that?
a new generation of congressmen and women who are younger, uh, possibly even more engineers in it, to actually understand the implications of things that are being done. Because with the current state of it, like Nancy Pelosi,
Mitch
Mitch
McConnell,
McConnell,
right?
yeah, sorry, all these
They
names
don't
are escaping me.
understand.
Like yeah, if you
No, yeah.
explain what I explained to you in technical terms now, they'd be like, huh?
Most people that have a lot of power on Capitol Hill tend to be in their 60s and 70s, and most people that I know in their 70s can barely operate an iPhone.
That's true. Also, if they were 30-year-olds, though, like as soon as one of those tech CEOs gets very technical with what they're doing, they're not
It's
going to
like, what do
understand
you
it
give
anyways.
it to me in English? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys have to profile people?
What do you mean by profile?
So, for example, um, let's say you're working on something that's going to uh, let's step back for a second. Let's say that you are trying to stop terrorists from recruiting on, let's use Facebook, for example. And you guys have been able to put together, well, a lot of people that are recruiting people from terrorist organizations happen to live in Syria, Yemen, Mali. I'm just giving, war-torn country areas, right? Can you guys create, let's say you're trying to stop that shit, could you create a bot that says, hey, here's these kind of categories we're looking for. We're looking for a Facebook account that is relatively new that was created in Syria between the months of, you know, X to X that use these keywords. This is an account we need to review.
Yes, that would be very trivial. Like, in fact, like probably we could like make a prototype of that in like an hour.
Could you, okay, so that's something they do. Could you target it to somebody's religion?
Um, in theory, we can, but this is where we get into the legal aspect of things. Like these companies are
So these
still
companies are very legal.
well, yeah, we like if it's not against the if it's against the law, we are not doing it. And this is where even though tech is very liberal, as in like forward thinking and like more relaxed, they are still very bureaucratic organizations. If that makes sense.
Why do you say they're liberal?
Liberal not meaning like liberal as left, but liberal as like forward, progressive. Like the 9 to 5 work week doesn't exist.
Got it. Okay.
Sorry, different terminology than the
No, yeah,
political
yeah,
one.
just seeing where you're going with that.
Um,
Anything that you feel people don't know about big tech that you want them to know
I mean,
that you would say with a mask on?
I think the big thing which we've touched on a lot here is really watch your data. Think about how you're being controlled by these companies. Think about the ads you're being served, and really think about how much you want to engage with it, at least in terms of like posting and giving up information. I think social media is an incredible tool. I personally still use Instagram. I just don't post anything. And just kind of be aware of what you're giving away for free. You're the company's product. The company's product is not their application.
There's a reason why Facebook's free.
There's a reason why everything is free nowadays.
Wow, that's interesting. Um, and you're saying, like I said, people can request their data. One other thing I wanted to ask you, I hope I'm not holding you up, and we'll probably fit this in somewhere. Why is it sometimes when I talk, like right now, I've talked about United flight, Cincinnati, Cleveland. That's where I'm going soon,
Yeah,
to cover what's going on in East Palestine. Um, if I keep talking about this with you for like an hour,
you're gonna get an
I
ad.
might get,
You will get an
why?
ad.
Okay,
They are listening to you.
why? Who is
Is
listening to me?
TikTok is infamous. Algorithms are listening to you. They're pulling keywords from your
You're telling
speech.
me that my phone is listening to what I'm saying, even though I
So
don't have the
I
app
don't want to
open.
show my phone again. But
Don't.
yeah, not. But yeah, go look at like what. I think you have to Google this now, but I'll send another article you can attach to
Let's do
this
this.
talk.
Let's do it. Give me a test. People that are watching or listening to this. Give me a test that they could do right now to see what you're saying is legit. What could they do? Do they need to take their phone and keep
Okay,
saying,
here's a classic one. If you do not have a pet, talk about dogs or cats for about an hour or two. Or just like casually say dog or cat every once in a while. Do not Google anything about
next
them.
to your phone?
Yeah, just next to your phone with your phone open. Say dog toys,
I
etc.,
love dogs.
etc.
I
Yeah,
want to get another dog. I need to buy dog food, dog shampoo. You're telling me if I kept saying that after an hour, I'm going to start seeing ads for that.
yes. And then if you do have
Jeez.
pets, something else. If you don't drink, talk about alcohol. If you don't smoke, talk about. Actually, you can't do smoking ads anymore. Um,
Um,
but you
yeah,
get
no, I
it's
see what you're
something you
saying.
don't usually.
Talk about something you don't do
If you don't play
or that
video
doesn't
games,
interest
talk
you.
about video games. There's another one.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So a test for everybody. Talk about something next to your phone that you don't do there that doesn't interest you for like an hour, and see what happens.
Yep. And do it with your phone
Wow.
open. Just go through your apps. I think when your phone is locked, you're relatively safe. But as soon as you unlock it, game's kind of over.
Okay. Well, I think everybody should try that, and we'll see. Maybe people can comment.
Add a
We'll put
poll.
up maybe a
Yeah.
reel. Yeah, maybe we'll put up a reel with this, and maybe people could just share it after they try it, and if it happens, share it and comment what you think.
Yeah.
Um, let me ask you this too. Your thoughts on TikTok? It's a very hot topic right now. Congress is, there's some people in Congress that are saying the app needs to go. Some people are saying it's an arm of the Chinese Communist Party. Some other people are saying that this is bullshit. A lot of creators on TikTok aren't happy about the government potentially zeroing in on it. TikTok's come out and said that this is all like, just politicized and the company has its own independent US organization. What are your thoughts?
Um, I think it needs to go. I think it is
Across
definitely
the board, gone.
gone. It's definitely spyware. It's the definition of like we are spying on you. One of the Congress questions to tie back was, are you guys storing user data in the US or China? They're storing it in the US, but it doesn't mean they can't access it from China.
What would the Chinese government want to do with your data?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of things they can target their own malicious ads. Like they can become an ad buyer. I'll send another article for you to attach to the show notes. But a security expert for like cybersecurity analyze TikTok. They go through your messages. They go through your calls. They go through your voicemails. They go through your emails. It's like
And
the
Apple is the one that allows TikTok to be an app. They're okay with this shit?
they cut down on this when they realized it, but the thing is, things are getting so advanced, it's an arms race. Like, as much as Apple can detect, new things that are undetectable are getting developed. I can tell you, for
So,
my personal company, Apple gives us a very hard time about certain things, rightfully.
mhm.
But before this was such big news, Apple was a little more lax about it because they just weren't thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Without disclosing your company, do you feel your company's ethical with the stuff they do in the background?
From what I know, we do. I think we are on
I
the
mean, we're not
more
going to
ethical
talk about
side.
who you are, but there's some history
I
to
think
you guys.
there is some history. I think where we are today, we are on the more ethical side of tech. I will leave like the comments for ethicality up to people to decide of just tech in a general. But I would say we're on the better
Yeah,
side. I wouldn't say we're perfect at all, but we're on the
yeah.
better side.
What, in your opinion, what company do you feel in big tech right now is
None.
probably
Not a single one
you
is good.
couldn't pick one company that is, maybe the poster child of being somewhat good?
Um, big tech. I don't like maybe Slack, like business tools, Zoom. Like they just you pay them.
Discord?
Discord, I'm sure, is collecting a ton of data on you. Anything that
Mm,
isn't free is probably going to be more ethical. That's just an easy way to put it because they're making money other than just selling you data.
understood.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fascinating just to kind of hear from your point of view, everything. I don't think there's anything else I needed to hit on. Is there anything you didn't get to talk about?
No, I think I'm pretty satisfied with this and my
Cool.
concerns about the danger of big tech and social media.